Tell me a story. Let's begin. Tales to tell, adventures to spin. Once upon a time, there was a young girl who lived happily with her mother and father. They all loved each other very much, and every day together was like a little slice of heaven. But one day, misfortune, as it sometimes does, came to visit them, and the girl's mother got sick and died soon after. And beside themselves with grief, the father and the girl did not know what to do. The father thought to himself, my daughter at least should have a mother around and other kids, since I just can't. And so he quickly looked around and thought, yeah, she's got two girls about my daughter's age, and they're pretty, and sure, yeah. And so he quickly married the widow and brought her and her two daughters to live with him and his daughter. And at first things seemed to go well enough, and the girls were they were a little petty and maybe a little small-minded. The same could be said for the stepmother, but still, at least things were all right. Now that he felt as though he had done his part to make sure his daughter was going to be taken care of, the dad, he threw himself into his work, tried to drown his grief with as many hours and hours and trips and things just to forget as he possibly could. Before one of these business trips, he asked each of the girls, what would you like me to bring you as a gift from my journey? And the one stepsister said, oh, please bring me jewelry. I would like some very pretty jewelry. And the other said, oh, I would like fine dresses of silks and satins so that I can look like a real princess. And what about you, my girl? And his daughter said, Dad, I would like you to bring me a sprig off of the first tree that brushes your hat. But that's all? Mm-hmm. Okay. And so the dad went, and when he returned from his business trip, he brought jewelry for the one and fine dresses for the other, and for his own daughter he brought a sprig from a hazel tree that had brushed his hat when he was traveling, and that he had kept alive throughout the journey by keeping it in water. And so now the girl could take it out. She planted it on her mother's grave and would visit it every day to care for it, water it, and tend to it. And soon it grew into a beautiful hazel bush, or hazel tree. But the trips grew longer and longer, and most of the time when he came back, he was so distant that it was hard for any of them to really feel like he was there. And on those trips, when he was away for those trips, it soon became evident that things maybe were not as well as they should have been, because what had been just minor pettiness began to turn into outright meanness, and then to being just very, very poorly treating her and having her do all the chores while they would do nothing. The girl thought, well, I don't want to bother my dad. He's already so sad. I don't want to make it worse. So when he came home from the trip, she would always put on a happy face and try to do her best. And then on one of those trips, the dad got sick and he died as well. And now the girl was all alone with the stepmother and her stepsisters. And the stepmother and stepsisters, as soon as there was no longer the benefit of the money, their real true colors began to show. And now it wasn't just the odd chores. No, now they took all her fine dresses. Oh, you don't need these anymore. All her nice things, and moved into her room and had her instead sleeping in the kitchen, where she curled up near the fire to stay warm. And the soot and ashes would cling to her, and she'd try as she might, couldn't always get it washed off because she was so busy from morning till night, fetching the water and the firewood and getting the meals cooked and cleaning all through the house and so on and so forth. And this was a very, very difficult time for her. And because of all the ashes, they started to call her Askepot, or ash puddle, rather than calling her by her name. So this was a very, very difficult time, but the girl decided that she was going to make the best of it. There wasn't much else she could do, and so she made the best of it. She decided every day that she was going to just see if she could do a little better than the day before. So she did. And time passed like this for years until all the girls were quite grown up. And then one day, oh, the excitement. An invitation from the palace came, inviting them all to a ball in honor of the prince's birthday. This was, of course, a very exciting thing because rumors were that the prince was very eligible, very handsome, and looking for a wife. And, well, of course, there was more than one mom who had a gleam in her eye at the idea of her daughter being the one chosen. The stepmother was no different. But, of course, they did not say anything about the invitation to Cinderella, though she quickly found out, because all of a sudden her days were spent doing nothing so much as mending dresses and rearranging and trying to make dresses look even better and sewing, and she was run ragged. She did her best every day, and when she could, she would try to see if she could make something for herself too. Never really got to. And she asked her stepmother on the day of the ball, "Oh, please, 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 please let me go." The stepmother said, "You? You're so dirty you can barely be washed clean. Ugh, we don't want to be seen with you. Huh, no, that would be an embarrassment to us all. Please, please, please let me go. I've worked so hard. Oh, please." And finally, the stepmother relented and said, well, sort of relented. She said, "All right, fine. Here, I have emptied a pot of lentils into the ashes for you. If you can pick all of them out again in 2 hours' time without a single grain of ash amongst the lentils, I will allow you to go." "Thank you," said Cinderella, or Ash Puddle. Cinderella, Ash Puddle, more or less the same. She said the girl, and ran out to the kitchen. But rather than running straight to the fireplace, she ran to the backyard and she called to the birds. Because, you see, at the grave, at her mother's grave, there was a bird that would come every single day and sit in the hazel bush. And she had spoken with it so many times, she felt certain it must be the spirit of her mother come down to look, to protect and guide her. And so she went out and she called. She said, "All you small birds from bushes and trees, all you small birds, please come here, help me now. I have a job here that would be the best. If you could help me, then I'll do the rest. And birds came flocking, as if they knew exactly what she needed, and they picked and pecked and swiftly sifted through the ashes. And in less than an hour even, every lentil was picked up, not an ash amongst them, and all back into the pot. And brimming with joy, the girl went to her stepmother and said, "See, see, I did it! Now I can go to the ball with you." Lentils or not, you have nothing to wear. Oh, and your nails are far too dirty. No, you simply cannot go. But you promised. No, you just cannot do it. You're just a filthy mess. But please? Fine, said the stepmother. I've emptied 2 pots of lentils into the ashes for you. Pick them out, same rules as before, but in half an hour's time. And then you can come to the ball with us. Thank you. And so Cinderella once again went to the back door and she called to the birds, "Oh, little birds from the bushes and trees, come to me, help me now, please. I've a job here for you that you would do best. Please help me now, and I'll do the rest." And the birds came flocking even more than before, and helped sift and peck and pick and peck and swiftly sift through the ashes. And so, before the half hour was done, she came to her stepmother and said, "See, see, both pots have been picked clean. There's no ashes amongst them." "Yes, well, it doesn't change anything. It'd be an embarrassment to us all. The prince would not glance at you. It would be terrible. Besides, there's no time. We've got to go. Girls, attend me now." And so the stepmother and stepsisters traipsed out the door into the carriage, and off they went to the palace. Cinderella was so disappointed and so sad. She went out to her mother's grave and cried to the bird that came and sat by her. Why doesn't she love me? Why won't she let me go? I try and I try and I try, and nothing helps. And then the bird surprised her, because it spoke. It said, "You want to go to the ball? Ask the tree." Ask the tree? "Oh, please, please, throw gold and silver down on me." And down rained, and down fell the most beautiful gown imaginable, with golden slippers and all the finery that she could possibly ever have wished for. And so the girl hurried to wash and clean and get all scrubbed and beautiful until she was hardly recognizable at all. And she put on the gorgeous gown and all the finery and the little golden slippers, and she hurried up to the palace as well. And when she arrived, everyone thought she must be a princess from a faraway land, because no one knew her. And when the prince saw her, he at once knew that he wanted to dance with this girl who seemed to have a glow from within. They danced and they danced and they spoke all night, and they got along wonderfully. But when the ball was nearly done, off she went back home, because maybe she just wasn't quite ready yet to be a different person. And so she ran, she put the gown back, thank you, to the bird, the tree, The bird took it back, and Ashputtle herself went to sleep in the ashes just as usual in her usual old rags. And when the others came home, they saw her as if she'd been sleeping there all night and thought, at least some things are as they should be. But you see, the ball was to last for 3 nights, and so the very next day went much the same as the first, but everyone, of course, had to have a different gown for that, which they had prepared for, and Cinderella helped them all day to get ready and asked, please let me go. And the same thing happened. That night, after they'd left, she went out and she asked the bird, oh, little bird, I wish to go to the ball. Please, rain silver and gold down on me. And down came the most beautiful gown, even more beautiful than the one the night before, but again, with little golden slippers. They were quite comfortable, which was quite amazing because they were of pure gold, but nonetheless, they seemed to bend and fit to her feet as if magic was in them. And so she went to the ball, and the second night passed much as the first, where everyone assumed she must be a princess from some faraway kingdom, and the prince would dance with no one but her and spoke only with her. But before the ball was done, off she went, not to be discovered, and hurried home quick as can be, and put the dress away, put back on her rags, and laid down to sleep in the fireplace as if she'd been there all night. And the third night of the ball came, and as before, off they went, and Cinderella went out to the back, to her mother's grave, and asked the bird yet again, please, to help her go to the ball. And this time, the gown that rained down was beyond anything Cinderella could ever have imagined, far more beautiful than any of the nights before, and again with the magical golden slippers. And so off she went. And the same, of course, with the ball, except that this time the prince was determined to have some way, at least, of finding her again. And he had noticed those very unusual shoes, and so he decided to have his servants, once all the guests had arrived, smear pitch on the stairs. Because that, he thought, well, if he was lucky, it would simply hold her long enough for him to catch her. And if he was unlucky, nothing else, he would have a shoe left behind. Maybe he could thereby find the girl it belonged to? And so, when the girl ran off, she was in such a hurry because she'd had so much fun that she almost didn't get to leave before the stepmother and stepsisters. She didn't want to get in trouble with them. So, she was in quite a hurry as she ran down the stairs and didn't dare to stop and pick up the shoe that got left behind. Simply left it there and ran. But the prince saw at least which general direction she had run into, and so the next day took the shoe and came riding up to their door. And in he rode and said, hello, I have reason to believe that the girl I wish to marry lives in this household, and I have promised that I will marry the girl this shoe fits. Oh, said the stepmother. Opportunity seemed to be there. Well, yes, oh yes, I recognize it. That is my daughter Kunigunda's shoe. Sorry, wrong language. Kunigunda's shoe. Let me go and get her, and we'll be right back. And so she took the shoe, and she took Kunigunda into the other room and said, here, try it on. Oh, said the girl. "Oh dear! Oh, my toe won't fit." "Well, here's a knife. Let's cut it off." Cut off? The what? Cut off my toe? Well, yes. Because you see, he said he'll marry the girl the shoe fits. If it fits, that means you. And once you are queen, you will no longer have to walk. Well, okay. And off went the toe. And into the shoe it went. And the prince looked at her and looked at the shoe. This was not the girl that he had danced with. But he was caught by his words. He had promised to marry the girl the shoe fit. So, he put the girl up onto his horse and said, "All right, let's go. I guess you will be my bride." But when they rode past the mother's grave, the birds sat in the tree and sang, "Hear us, prince, turn round, ride back to where you turn back around. Ride back from whence you were bound. This is not the girl for you. See the blood within the shoe. Cut the heel and clip the toe. This girl cannot put the shoe back right on." And so the prince looked down and saw that there was indeed blood trickling out of the shoe. He said, "You have deceived me. This shoe does not fit." And he rode right back from whence he had came. "This is not the right girl," said the prince. "Do you have other daughters?" "Yeah, oh yes, my mistake. It's my daughter Adelheide's shoe. Yes, and we'll be right back." And so they took the shoe and went into the other room. But Adelheid couldn't get her heel in, and so her mother said, "We'll cut it off." And so they did, and she bit in her pain as she came out. "See? It fits." And again the prince thought, "It's not the right girl. All right. Promise is promise. Let's go." But again, when they rode past the mother's grave, the bird sang, "Hear us, prince, turn round, this is not the right girl you found. See the blood within the shoe, this is not the girl for you. Cut the heel and clip the toe, this girl cannot put the shoe on her foot." And he looked down and saw the blood trickling out of the shoe and said, "You have also deceived me," and rode right back from whence he came. Said, "This also is not the girl. Is there anyone else?" "No. Well, I mean, there is Askepot, but I mean, she doesn't count. Besides, she didn't go to the ball, and she's much too dirty, and she cannot show her face." "Bring her now." "Yes, sir." And so Cinderella was brought in, try on the shoe, and this time there was no going to any other room, nor was it of course necessary, because when Cinderella put on the shoe, it fit as if it was made for her foot, and her foot alone, because of course it was. "And," she said, "I have the other one right here." And she put that one on as well. And when the prince looked at her, he saw, despite the dirt and the ash on her face and the rags, he saw this was the girl that he had danced with. And he said, "Yes, this is the one. Let's go." And so they rode to the palace, and this time the birds sang out, "Hear us, prince, this time you found the right girl for you, you found. The whole foot, heel and toe, Askepot could put the shoe on." Well, I don't know how the rest of the words translate right now, but you get the idea. The birds sang, Right shoe. Right girl. They rode to the palace and prepared for the wedding. At the wedding, the stepmother and the stepdaughters thought, well, maybe we can curry favor with the new queen, new princess. But at the wedding itself, the birds came down and sat, one on each of Cinderella's or Ashpuddle's shoulders. And as Cinderella walked up the aisle, the birds pecked out each sister's left eye. And as she walked down the aisle, they pecked up each stepsister's right eye. They'd been blind to the kindness that was before them, and now they were truly blind. But Ashpuddle and her prince, well, they lived happily to their day's end. And snip, snap, snap, how the story is out. Tip, tap, Tim. Soon a new one will begin.